My name is Julie Turney, and this is the HR Sound Off podcast show, the show created for HR and business professionals to discuss pertinent topics and trends as it relates to our professions. We're going to have amazing conversations with HR professionals from all over the world, get to learn their origin stories. How did they get into this profession? What do they love about being here? And how they want to set the record straight on that one misconception that really drives them crazy about our profession. Are you ready? I'm ready. Then let's sound off. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the HR Sound Off podcast show. My name is Julie Turney, and I am your host, magnifying HR voices and telling our stories. Today, I am joined by my guest, Jane Ferré. How are you doing today, Jane?
I'm brilliant. Thanks, Julie. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. I love magnifying HR voices. The more people I get to meet, speak to, share their stories, the more it really helps other HR professionals to build confidence in the profession. And other listeners get a chance to learn a bit more about HR and gain an appreciation that they didn't have before. And that's the whole aim of the game here. So why don't you start by telling our audience, who is Jane Ferré?
So the Jane Ferré right now is professionally someone who helps frustrated HR directors to bring redundancy consultations to an end quickly so that they can exit senior leaders with speed, dignity, and grace from their business. Because having senior leaders hanging around who aren't part of the future is a freaking nightmare. I meant to ask, am I allowed to swear on this podcast? Because HR, we need to swear a lot to just get through the day.
HR just need to let it out. Just need to let it out.
You just need to drop the F-bombs. So that's kind of who I am right now. Yeah. And I've got there through experiencing redundancy myself twice in a year, one of which was my own choice and that I engineered because I knew the process. Yeah. And the other one was not, and that came as a bit of a surprise. So I've kind of experienced both of them. Yeah. And that it's still a shock, whether you're expecting it or not, it's still a shock.
Yeah.
And you still go through that roller coaster of emotions.
Yes.
And it's still rejection. This is what I compare job hunting and being in a job. It's like being in a marriage. It's like being in a relationship.
Yep.
And somebody is like divorcing you. They're saying, we don't want you anymore. And that's like pretty horrible.
Yes.
It's rejection. And it's, it's part of life.
Hard to bear, it's true. But I will go back to that statement that you made that you thought you slipped under the radar. But before I do that, I want to just ask you to just give us like a snapshot of your HR career. What has that been like for you? How did you get into HR and what made you stay?
So the thing that got me into HR, weirdly, was I was working for British Airways. I worked there for almost 20 years. That's where most of my HR career was. Mm-hmm. I was in revenue management for the cargo division. Right? Mm-hmm. So like you couldn't get anything less glamorous than working shifts with a bunch of, I was 20 something at the time, with a bunch of 40 and 50-year-old blokes. So deciding what freight is going to go on the aircraft and what isn't. And we were moving buildings. So they built this state-of-the-art building. And they were doing this sort of sheep dip, like let's show everybody around the building. And I was chatting with the trainers during our break time. And they said, you know what, you'd be brilliant in training. And I was like, oh, thank you. And they were like, we've got a vacancy actually in our team. And I was like, great, that's nice. I mean, yeah, it closes tonight. So I was just like, okay. Wow. They were like, please apply. Because please apply. So I went home, I redid my CV and submitted my application. And long story short, got the job. And that was back in 1999. Oh my God.
Yeah. Wow.
we were all jamming to Prince, and that was like my first job, like in HR. And then I moved, so I did a lot of training, in the cargo division. So a lot of it was what I call the black and white training, the sort of instructional type stuff. And then I moved into some of the leadership training stuff. And then in 2008, we had a new HR director who almost ripped apart HR within BA and implemented the Ulrich methodology, which at the time was kind of, leading edge. We had Dave Ulrich come and, do his thing. And I was like, actually, this is what I want to be now. It's like, I was on the fast track program. I was now an HR business partner. It was this thing of you're strategic, you're not transactional. And I was like, thank God, because all the HR people I'd seen, it was all tissues and sympathy and, like transactional stuff. And I was like, I can't deal with like policy and all this, like crap. Having managed a team, I just, the HR support that I got I just found it really frustrating. And then suddenly it's like, that's the kind of HR I want to be, this strategic business partner to people. So I worked as an HR BP for, God, it must have been about 8 or 9 years across loads of different areas in the business. And then the bit that I really liked about strategic HR was talent. And my last job in BA was head of talent. And that is my passion in terms of HR. I think it's this thing of, it's just such a positive, if you imagine that CIPD wheel that they used to have,
they still have
that thing of the talent bit is the bit that I'm just passionate about. Because I think it crosses over so many different things, and if you get it right, that's the future of your business.
It definitely is. That's such an amazing snapshot of your HR career and how you've developed and grown. So then how did you make this transition to where you are now, in terms of helping exit HR leaders or leaders in organizations, from talent to
it's kind of interesting actually, because if you go into sort of, well, let me ask you a question first. How did I get here? I was rejected by 2 businesses. The airline industry, and right now we're kind of post-COVID, and in the UK it's still on its knees, and guess what, they're short-staffed after getting rid of
so many people,
12,000 people. Didn't see that one coming. But my role became redundant. So they this usual thing of, let's put 3 roles into one. Jane, would you like to put yourself forward? No, I wouldn't, thank you very much. You can stick that where the sun don't shine, because I'm not doing 3 jobs in one. So time for me to leave. And I just kind of knew, I was at that age where I thought, if I don't leave right now, I'm going to become that 50-something-year-old person in the corner that's just whinging and has seen it all before and is just really negative, and I don't want to be that person. So I got another role as head of training at Leon Restaurants, and then that role became redundant 8 months later. And I just thought, I don't want to work for people anymore. I want to choose what I do, where I do it, who I work with, and when I work. And I took that kind of leap of faith and was like, okay, it's now time for me to set up my business. And I've done what I've learned as part of setting up a business is, when you've had like 20 years experience, there's so much that you can do. But in terms of marketing yourself, you can't market yourself as, I'm going to be everything to everybody. So you have to find your niche.
You have to find your niche and work with that. And a lot of HR professionals that turn consultants, I think that's why a lot of them fail, because that's how you market yourself, as like, I'm just here to solve all of your HR problems. You couldn't, if you couldn't do it from a corporate perspective in someone's organization, it's going to be even harder on the outside. So when I hear consultants complaining, I go, but you did it to yourself. You expect it to still be all things to everyone outside of the organization. And that's not the whole purpose of becoming a consultant. You niche down, you find what is your passion, and you do that.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's interesting because people, we've kind of connected via LinkedIn, and people follow me on LinkedIn, and they still message me and they say, I know your profile says like, you help with outplacement, but I've just started a new job. Can you coach me in my first 90 days? And I'm like, yeah, of course I can. I do that with my eyes closed. So let's, if you want to do that, let's work on that.
Right.
But in terms of marketing, you've got to choose your niche. And you know what? You can choose whatever you want, and you can chop it and change it
whenever you want. That's what we were just talking about before we got started, about going through different evolutions. And I think that's the good thing about, as a business person, being very agile in the way you practice your business. And when things, you test and change, right? If you're not happy with how certain things are going, you can change it. If you are happy with things the way they're going, you keep it. If you just want to be able to attract a bigger audience in a different way, then you change it. So you just have to find what works for you and do that.
Yeah. It's funny actually, because I do see a lot of HR consultants, and if this is you, I might be talking to you, but I see the kind of LinkedIn headline and it's change management, OD, leadership development, coaching. And I'm just like, you can't possibly,
it's too much.
You can't, I don't know what you do. So therefore I wouldn't go to you, because you're trying to be everything, because just in case you might miss out on some opportunity. But it's like, we're getting on our soapbox already, and and it's like, stop it, because people are going to come to you because they have one big problem that the people inside that business can't solve for them.
Yeah, that's it.
You need and get clear on your message.
Yes, just be patient. Be patient. A lot of it, times you want to make money now, yes, and I understand the importance of that, but you have to be patient, and you have to test and experiment until you get clear on exactly what it is that you want to do. And then you need to work with someone to brand you accordingly, because you can't do all those things for yourself. It's too much.
Yeah.
At some point you have to stick your hand in the kitty and go, look, I need to invest. If I really want to take this seriously, I need to invest to make this happen and to make this better.
Yeah, that's the challenge though as well. It's finding the people who are not going to rip you off. I've had so many stories of people kind of working with coaches and business coaches, and it's just like that they've just been burned, or they've just not done the work, because the stuff around, like identifying your ideal client or your niche it's really hard. Right? You've got to dig deep.
Yeah.
And you've got to be really honest with yourself, because a lot of it is about, who do you want to work with?
Exactly.
What types of business do you want to work with? Startups? Do you want to work with big, multinational organizations? Do you want to work with the third sector? And how much money do you want to make? Right? Because HR people are not very good at talking about money either.
No, they're not.
How much money do you want to make? And if you want to make, 6 figures, then you've got to up your prices, because there's only one of you, unless you're going to have one of these, income generating businesses that works without you being in it, which is, not as easy as it's made out to be.
No, definitely not. You've raised so many good points. And I hope that our listeners today, really do take that to heart, because I just think that so many people burn themselves by not getting clear as early as possible on what it is that they want to offer in terms of services, and then how they want to market them, and being clear on their wording and their branding. I think a lot of people struggle with that. And you need to be able to make a decision about how you're going to invest to make sure that happens. I truly believe that the day of the HR generalist is going to gradually come to an end, because we've seen that as an HR generalist, it's very hard to tackle all of those requirements all in one. It's you will always miss something, drop something, because you can't do it all. You can't do payroll, administration, recruitment, talent management, strategy, HR analytics, well-being, benefits, performance management, engagement, policy formulation and strategy, org design. You can't do all of those things successfully. It's virtually impossible, and all of those things lead to the definition of insanity. You will lose your mind if you just continue to try to do all of those things. What do you think?
I do. I mean, this is what I loved about becoming an HR business partner. At the time I became an HR business partner, because the message was really clear. You know, you're not doing transactional stuff. You have shared services for that. Yes. And do you know what? Anybody that can do that transactional stuff, I freaking love you, because you being brilliant at your job enables me to be brilliant at my job. Exactly. and I just absolutely love that. But some of my colleagues who were in the HR space before me really struggled with that, because that was their almost the way that they proved their value to the business leaders. And I'd move into new business areas and they'd say, oh, can you write this secondment letter? And I was like, no. No. I'll send you the template. It's on the and also the worst thing is when someone says it's on the intranet. I would just frickin' hate that. So it's like, the template is on the intranet. I'll send you a link to it. You know, and what we had in VA was, you know, all of the templates for, you know, appointment, promotion, secondment, everything was there. You just fill in the gaps. That was it. It's very simple. I'll send you the link to it and the process, you know, to get it to shared services so that the change actually happens in the system. But it's like, I'm not doing that for you. And you start to do that stuff, and then you start to be seen as some sort of secretary. And it's like, HR is not there to do the line manager's job for them, because who does that job for HR when HR have got a secondment or a promotion or a recruitment? Who am I outsourcing it to? No one. As a line manager, I need to do that job myself. It's not because I'm HR, it's because I'm a line manager. Yeah. Just as line managers need to do their job. Yes. That my dear. Preach it, Jane. Preach it, Jane. Preach.
I couldn't agree with you more. I want to go back to that statement that you made earlier that you slipped under the radar.
Ooh, which one was that?
Where you talked about making your own position redundant because you knew the process. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that. What led to that and why? I think you talked a little bit about it earlier, but like, what advice would you give to HR professionals who may be in a similar situation?
I think you've got to figure out, what do you want, right? So what do you, there's almost a couple of processes that are happening concurrently. So the first one is the process that's happening in the business. So the redundancy consultation process. And remember, it's about reducing, mitigating, and avoiding redundancies. Yes. So if there is a job that you can do that they can match you to, the business has an obligation to do that. The more important question is the one that you need to ask yourself, which is, what do you want out of all of this? Yeah. Because you are not. So I heard Oprah talking to somebody about this the other day, and they were saying, are you waiting to be chosen? Or are you doing the choosing? Choosing yourself. And for people who are sitting there going, oh God, hope I get a job. It's like, do you want a job? Because I'd got to the point where it's like, for my own sanity, I need to get out of this business. Yeah. And so I choose to leave. And, I'd been part of a lot of outsourcing processes, a lot of redundancy consultations. I knew what was in them checks. Yes. It's like, I know what I have a right to. I know what the precedent is here. Yes. I know how to get myself on garden leave using the structures and the processes and the industrial agreements that we've got in place, and I can, and if there's going to be trouble, I will cite you like at least 10 cases that are similar to mine. And it's that thing, but I had decided that I wanted to leave, and that's the first thing. It's about what do you choose to do. Don't let the business choose for you.
No.
Because it has to be a suitable alternative. And there are some things where I just said to my boss, we went through the list of vacancies, and I went, you really seriously want to put me as head of diversity and inclusion, as it was at the time? I went, really? I went, I'll go crazy. It's not where I'm going to be great. And also, that's not a job, in my experience, that kind of gets you noticed. It's like a thing that's tolerated in a business, and certain businesses give it lip service rather than actual meaningful work. Impact. And so I looked at these jobs, and I was like, I don't want to do any of these jobs that are available, thank you very much. So I'm choosing to leave, and so let me make that happen. Following I wasn't doing anything that was extraordinary or that hadn't ever been done before. I was just doing what we had done as HR professionals when leading redundancy consultations in the business. So precedent is there. You want the list? Because I got one.
Yes. I love that, Jane, because sometimes I feel that as HR professionals, we forget that we're the ones that have either created the policies, sit very close to them, the processes, we know the pay structures and all those kinds of things, and we don't use those things to our advantage. Like if HR really was the evil genius that people think we are, I think a lot of us would be way ahead, further ahead than we are right now. Which gives true testimony to who we are as HR professionals at our core anyway. Thanks for sharing that. Most people underestimate the power of process. They stick it in the back seat and forget about it until it's too late. But they shouldn't. Processes run the world. Literally all of it. Stocked supermarkets, on-time trains, and safely landing planes are all made possible by systems of intricate, interlinked processes. They are the secret sauce of every great company, and HR teams are responsible for some of the most important processes of all. Onboarding employees, building teams, crafting culture. These vital systems are the lifeblood of every organization. That's why this episode of the HR Sound Off podcast show is brought to you by Process Street, the process platform of choice for HR teams around the world. Process Street is a no-code platform that lets you transform your most important HR processes into powerful workflows. Design beautiful employee onboarding experiences with extreme engagement that increase inclusion and reduce turnover. Sync tasks into Slack or Microsoft Teams, automate emails, handoffs, and so much more. Thousands of teams, large and small, trust Process Street to manage their most important people processes, like Salesforce, that use Process Street to onboard all the 3,000 Slack employees after the $27 billion acquisition. You can learn more and sign up for a free account at www.process.st. I want to ask you, if you could give advice to your younger self now starting out in HR, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say move in and out of HR.
Never heard that one before.
Because
explain thyself.
This is really interesting because I always remember this from when we have the new HR director who came in and brought in the Ulrich method. And one thing, although he'd never done this when you look back at his career, so there's the irony. But one thing he always said was, I want you as HR professionals to move out of HR and into business and then come back into HR. So it's always like, go and do business leader jobs.
Yes.
Because I had so many people in HR that, we discuss, challenges that were going on in the business. And I would sit there thinking, you lot, You lot are sitting here in your ivory tower. These are my colleagues who I loved dearly. But it's like you're sitting here in your ivory tower telling people how they should manage their people.
So far,
and you have never managed people. You're sitting saying what you should do, and I think this is where I made a big difference. I'd managed teams in cargo. I'd managed teams of like line trailers who weren't taking any shit at all. And I'm sort of saying to the business leader, what do you want to do? Tell me what you want to happen, and let me show you how to get there. In a respectful way. So because you want to sack, and if it's the case of I want them out the business, okay, then be honest with me. And let's figure out a way to get them out of the business. Or I'm just going to tell you that no, you need to go and, I don't know, put together a proper performance improvement plan, or you know, whatever it is. But if you want them out of the business and they're not right for the business, let's do that, but do it in a respectful manner that follows the rules. Right? So it's that. It's like, don't spend all your life in HR. Get out, do something else, and come back, because you'll be a much better HR person.
Exactly. I think people just get out of there, but not the but do come back and share your lived experiences and your knowledge and your expertise, because it does definitely make you more well-rounded once you've been exposed to all of those other
otherwise as a business, particularly a large business, you're going to have a team of HR professionals who've only ever worked in HR. They don't understand the business. And actually HR people need to be business practitioners, very business savvy. I preach that all the time, the importance. Like when I say, how much money did your business make last year? Don't know. How much did they make versus their competition? What did your competition do in terms of being more successful at recruiting that you didn't do? What were some of the recruitment drives that were happening on the outside? Because I think sometimes we get tunnel vision. We get into an organization, we just know that we've got to do this, and this is all we focus on, versus, but you know what? We should look and see what's happening over at Virgin, or we should look and see what's happening over at Delta, and what are they doing differently? What are their attrition and retention rates like, and what are they doing? What's the best in practice, and how can we make our organization better? I think a lot of times people just get tunnel vision, and it's like, we're here to either discipline, we're here to give advice, create programs, and let's just get that done, and they don't look anywhere else but right here. Blinkers are the worst thing. So I think I'm always advocating, look, go outside, find out what's happening in the outside world, bring that and relate that back to your business, but know where your business is at. And how can you create HR strategy or plans if you don't know where your business is at? How? Exactly. And HR strategy is business strategy.
Yes.
It's almost like, you need to start with your business strategy. It's like, don't go and sit in a dark room and create a people strategy. It's like, what's the business strategy, and it's almost like, right, so what does the people team need to do in order to deliver that strategy to the business? And actually it's not for the business to come up with the answers. It's for you to come up with the answers. And even if your organization does not make room for you to take on other positions, go sit in other parts of the business for a couple of weeks or months and just see how they work and how they operate and what their objectives are and how they tie back to yours. Everything that happens in an organization always ties back to HR, because you're responsible for the people experience. And the brilliant thing about being in HR is that you're in a position to get to know everybody. I mean, and I think about, I worked across cabin crew, flight operations, engineering, commercial. It's like, I know most people in certainly, in those areas that I worked in, and it's like, if you start to build your network, because you never know when it's going to come in handy. You never know. I think we can get off our soapbox a little bit, Jane. So I want to ask you, what do you do for self-care? Obviously, you're still very much connected to HR.
and especially the process of helping people out, outplacing and helping people to exit organizations with dignity and respect. And that can be a very heavy job.
Mm.
And then I know for me as a coach, supporting burned out and frustrated HR professionals and helping them to level up and find their love for HR again, that sometimes I get so caught up in the stories, I can get depressed very quickly at some of the horrible things that I hear from my clients. How do you take care of you in the moments that you're doing what you're doing?
I think for me, it's almost creating the life. It's the prevention thing. Yeah. So I have always, so I am it's so interesting. I am child free by choice. And yet when we talk about things like flexible working, it's always talked in the view of there's an underlying thing, which is this is about women with children. And it's like, no, hang on a minute. I practice flexible working because my friend's over from Paris and I'm meeting him. We're going to the theatre. So I'm leaving at, 4:30 to get the train. And it's that, and I like to think of it in terms of balance. It's almost like there are times when, do you know what, you're working 12-hour days and you're about to launch like a bomb that's going to like blow off everywhere and start fires everywhere. There are times when it's just like, you know what, it's like clear your diary, that's what it is for the next couple of months. But you cannot do that all the time. So it's then about just flipping the switch. And then, when I tell you what, the thing that drives me crazy, lunch and learn. No, I'm not. I'll come to your lunch and learn, but I'm not lunching there. So I'm very much of the, so my surname is French. I used to live in France. My lunchtime is not spent at my desk. It is spent away from my desk, sitting down with a knife and fork and eating my lunch, wherever that may be. It might be on the roof terrace in the summer, in the dining room in the winter. It's not taken at my desk. And I'm certainly not taking a brown bag into a session where I'm expected to do some work. So it's this thing of balance. And it's, and I used to put in like my lunch breaks in my diary. People complain about they're like, oh God, I'm back to back to back. And it's like, hang on. Your diary is yours.
Self-inflicted. Right? Self-inflicted.
You own your diary.
Correct.
So put in there so I now do not take meetings before 9 by exception. If I'm doing like a training course for someone.
Same with me.
10 a.m. is my first meeting. It's and it actually used to kind of be like that in the corporate world. They knew I was not an early bird, but my lunch break it's an appointment in my diary because do you know what, I'm gonna eat lunch. If I'll come to your lunch and learn, and then I'll have my lunch break, because the two don't coexist in my world. So you've got to step up and you've got to own your own time. And this is about being really clear about your boundaries in place. So get the balance right. Yes,
definitely. I love that. Thank you. Tell us what you're reading, watching, listening to right now that you think our audience would appreciate. Doesn't have to be HR related.
Oh, it's not.
I love it when it's not actually.
So the thing that I am reading again, and this changed my life actually. So it's a book called Getting Things Done, and it's called The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. And I was actually coaching. So I was a coach in BA. So I was a job plus coach. So I did my day job and coached people on the side. Another cost-cutting measure. But there we go. But I was coaching a lady and we were talking about her workload, and she said to me, she goes, oh, my son, he's got this book, and long story short, and I was sitting there as the coach thinking, I think I need to read this book, because I'm in this place where it's like I've got so much going on, I don't know how to, it's starting to get a bit overwhelming. Literally finished that session, went back to my desk, Googled this book, ordered it on Amazon there and then, started reading it the next day when it arrived, and it is literally how I live my life. And it's about just it's not about doing more, it's about capturing stuff, everything, holding nothing in your head. So my head is empty as my head is empty because everything is in my system.
Mm.
And having everything out of my head in my system frees up that psychic realm to be able to be creative and offer solutions and make judgments about the things that are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So either batting them straight back,
mm-hmm.
or if it's coming in, I can look at everything that I've got and I could say to my business leaders, right, well, I can do that for you, or we can make that happen, but what's happening with this?
Yeah.
You know, so the last week's latest and loudest thing, is that still what's happening? Or do you want me to cancel that? Or do you want...
Right.
So it's not just, I'm not just adding more and more stuff onto my plate,
but you're prioritizing and being able to.
Yeah. And it's a great way. So, you know, whenever I'd sit with a business leader, I'd have their agenda in front of me. So I use a system called Todoist. You can use Trello, Asana,
Trello, Asana, ClickUp,
those.
Any of those, yes.
Any of those, but everything was tagged. So all my business, you know, at one point, I think I had about 5 or 6 business leaders. So each business leader had a tag, and I'd sit down for my, you know, weekly one-to-one. I'd bring up Matt, and they're like, here, I've got your list in front of me. Let's talk about this. And then you go in and you own the agenda. Yes. You're not in the meeting taking orders, which is what a lot of HR people do. So it's called Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. And it's by a guy called David Allen. And it's changed my life.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. The last big question, Jane. What's the biggest misconception about HR that really bothers you that you want to set the record straight on right here, right now?
I think it's like we've talked about this quite a lot. I think it's this, I think it's HR people need to change the way that people perceive HR, and that is done by how you behave. So all these conversations about HR needs a seat at the table. Yeah, it does. But you don't hear finance people going, oh, finance needs a seat at the table. It's just a given, right? So stop being the victims in all of this and just but you need to stop acting like an HR person, start acting like a business person. Start acting like someone that's got a work stream, if you want. But you're not there taking orders. You're part of that conversation and you're part of the solution. Yeah. So it's about changing, I hate this word, like your mindset, like when you're going into something. But, you know, you don't hear finance people going, oh, we need a seat at the table. Exactly.
Or marketing or operations. They're just there, right?
Or legal or whatever, you know, or no one.
Yeah, they're all there. So you deserve your space. Own it. Prove it. Exactly. Get out of the tunnel vision. Get more business savvy.
Yes, absolutely.
I love it. Thank you so much. You survived your time in the sound with Jane there.
Yay!
Thank you, Jane. I really appreciate you being here today and sharing your story, your experiences, your knowledge, being vulnerable. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Whenever I hear something like sounding off, or it gives me an opportunity to get on my soapbox, I am there. So thank you for giving me the voice.
You're welcome. Tell our beautiful audience where they can find you on social media.
So my social media of choice is LinkedIn. So please do connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you want to find out about me, my website is just my name. It's janeferré.com.
janeferré.com. You heard it, people. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best. I'm looking forward to seeing all the wonderful things that you come up with and listening and following your journey on LinkedIn as well. But don't be a stranger. You're welcome here anytime.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me for this episode of HR Sound Off. I hope that you found it useful. You can find this and all of the episodes of HR Sound Off on all major podcast platforms. Spotify, Apple, Amazon, you name it, we're there. Remember, HR Sound Off is created by HR professionals for HR professionals. If you would like to share your story, then reach out to us and let us know. Make sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe to HR Sound Off on YouTube as well as Podbean. And we'll see you again when we next sound off.